The moment the young waitress cleared their table, she had no idea that the quiet choice she made that night would echo louder than money, louder than fame, and louder than anything she had ever dreamed. Because sometimes destiny doesn't knock, it sits silently in the corner and waits to be fed. Christmas Eve had wrapped the small roadside cafe in forced cheer. Plastic garlands drooped from the ceiling. A crooked Santa blinked red and green above the counter, and an old radio hummed carols that no one was really listening to. For Lillian Moore, the holiday meant nothing more than aching feet and a double shift she couldn't refuse. At 26, Lillian wasn't chasing joy, she was chasing survival. Her mother's medical bills were overdue, her rent was rising, and the smile she wore for customers was practiced, not felt. That's when she noticed them. An elderly couple sat at the last booth near the window, barely touching the heat lamp above their table. They shared one menu between them, and whispered like they were afraid to disturb the air itself. The man's jacket was decades old, carefully brushed but threadbare. The woman's scarf was faded, folded neatly as if it held memories rather than warmth. Their names, though Lillian didn't know it yet, were Walter Finch and Eleanor Finch. Most customers didn't look twice at them. Some did and quickly looked away. Lillian approached with 2 glasses of water. "Good evening," she said softly. Walter smiled with effort. "Just soup, please. 1 bowl is enough." Lillian nodded, though something twisted in her chest. When the soup arrived, Eleanor stirred it slowly, dividing it into 2 portions with careful precision. It wasn't just hunger Lillian saw, it was pride fighting embarrassment. As the night wore on, laughter rose and fell around them. Families ordered desserts, couples clinked glasses, children begged for hot chocolate. The Finches ate slowly, stretching every spoonful, as if time itself could be chewed. When Lillian returned with the bill, Walter reached into his pocket and unfolded a collection of coins and crumpled bills. His hands shook not from age alone, but from the quiet humiliation of counting money in public. Lillian swallowed hard. She walked away, stood behind the counter, and stared at the menu board. Turkey dinner, fresh rolls, apple pie. Her paycheck flashed in her mind along with her mother's prescriptions and the eviction notice she was fighting. The sensible thing was to do nothing. Instead, she picked up 2 full plates. When she set them down at the Finch's table, Eleanor gasped. "Oh dear, we didn't—" "They're on the house," Lillian said quickly. "Kitchen mistake." Walter looked up at her, eyes sharp despite his age. "Young lady, that's not honest." Lillian met his gaze. "It is," she said gently, "because wasting food would be worse." Silence settled between them. Then Eleanor reached for Walter's hand, and together they nodded. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she whispered, "Thank you." They ate like people remembering what warmth felt like. Afterward, Eleanor squeezed Lillian's hand. "What you gave us tonight wasn't just food," she said. "It was dignity." Walter studied Lillian carefully. "Why did you help us?" Lillian shrugged, though her voice trembled. "Because I know what it's like to be hungry and invisible." Walter smiled, a smile filled with understanding rather than surprise. When they left, they moved slowly, leaning into each other. Lillian cleared the table and found a folded napkin beneath the plate. Inside was a single sentence written in elegant ink: "Kindness is never forgotten." She didn't think much of it until the next morning. Christmas Day arrived cold and quiet. Lillian was still in her pajamas when a black luxury sedan stopped outside her apartment. A tall man in a charcoal coat knocked on her door. "My name is Caleb Whitmore," he said calmly. "I represent Walter and Eleanor Finch." Lillian's heart raced. I didn't do anything wrong." Caleb smiled. On the contrary, he handed her a folder. Inside were documents that made no sense at first: company reports, foundation letters, and a handwritten note. Dear Lillian, last night you served us as equals when the world often measures worth by appearance. For decades we built empires and watched people treat us with reverence once they knew our names. We wanted to know who would be kind when there was nothing to gain. You were. Walter and Eleanor Finch Caleb cleared his throat. The Finches are majority shareholders in multiple international corporations. Their net worth exceeds $4 billion. Lillian sat down, dizzy. They've established a trust in your name, Caleb continued. Your mother's medical care is fully funded. Your rent is paid for the next 10 years. And they'd like to sponsor your education, should you choose it. Tears streamed down Lillian's face, not because of the money, but because someone had seen her. But there's one condition, Caleb added. Her heart tightened. What is it? That you continue being exactly who you were last night. Months later, Lillian still worked at the cafe by choice. She helped quietly, anonymously, paying it forward meal by meal. Walter and Eleanor never sought attention. They never wanted headlines. Because the greatest wealth they discovered that Christmas Eve wasn't in their billions. It was in a waitress who fed 2 hungry strangers when no one was watching. And proved that kindness, when freely given, always finds its way back.